It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is brand new music from Flotsam Jetsam. The name of that tune was Architects of Hate. It is from the End of Chaos release. And on the line right now is one of the Architects of Hate. It is the longtime guitarist of Flotsam Jetsam. It is the one and only Michael Gilbert. Mike, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure, man. Well, Michael, I'm just gonna say this the way it is. It seems like you personally, within the framework of Flotsam and Jetsam, are the difference maker between the great stuff and the not so great stuff. If you look at the career of Flotsam and Jetsam and you look at the records you played on, and then you look at the stuff that you didn't play on, it's clear where the inspiration comes from. I'll say that. How's that work for you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This latest release, In the Chaos, has been pretty much a collaboration of the five of us. You know, we seem to really work well together on this record. The last record, self-titled one, seemed like it was a stepping stone to where we got right now, and it just really seems like it's a well-oiled machine with these guys. And yeah, I think that we actually, we're kind of back on the map again, and kind of got an old school vibe happening again. It seems like that's what's pumping through our blood right now. So, we're happy to get it on tape.
No doubt, man. Well, and Michael, I am a diehard of the band. You guys, Flotsam and Jetsam is definitely one of my top 10 bands ever. I never am too far away from like Doomsday or Quattro or High or, even the last record I played to death. And I love what you guys do. I'm curious, and you may not even know this because I'm not even sure. I don't believe you were in the band for all of this, but it just seemed like for a little bit there in the early 2010s, the band got away from doing what it has always done best. With records like The Cold and Ugly Noise, just seemed so experimental for the band. To your knowledge, were they trying to do something different, and what changed to bring it back?
Well, it was different songwriters for The Cold. It was pretty much a completely different lineup. The only members that were in that lineup were Ed Carlson and AK. AK, mm-hmm. He's the voice of the band. He's like the staple. He is the voice. He's what people recognize with Flotsam. But Ugly Noise is when I reappeared in the band. I decided to come back. They asked me to come back and start writing, and that was some of the stuff that I wrote in my absence. So, and I was starting to experiment with sequences and dubstep stuff with music, and just not that I was definitely trying to incorporate it into some of the Flotsam music, but that's not really the Flotsam style.
Right.
But there's a little taste of some of that stuff on there. So, it's kind of the thing with us, we're constantly experimenting and trying to, I guess, as a musician, trying to find ourselves, all the time,
Sure.
Trying to get better, trying to get our chops up.
Sure. Is there pressure as a musician to write toward the history of the band instead of going too far, into a new direction?
Absolutely. We're always trying to, I consider it like a game face. When you go and you like a football game, your coach is like, they give you the speech to try to amp you up to make sure that you're playing with all your adrenaline and you're revved up for the game. Same thing with music, whenever you're getting ready to make a record, you don't want to be listening to anything that's really not revving you up.
Right.
You want it to be, and that's what we go back to. We listen to our roots for game day, for the record that we release. So we go back and listen to the stuff from our roots and some of the old school metal. So, that usually when you're writing, it usually comes out just naturally. So
sure. Well, you definitely found it on the End of Chaos. It is such an in-your-face and just nasty release, man. It's so, it's one of those that there's so many songs on it that are just pummeling. And I have to imagine for you as a guitarist, you really had to look deep within every riff you were writing to develop, into that style without just repeating yourself, which I think you've done.
Yeah, we had a lot of songs for this record. We had a little bit of a different writing process, as Steve Conley's heavily into the writing too as well, and so is Ken. These guys are the newest members of the band, but man, they are really bringing stuff to the table that's killer, and that's definitely an asset. And we had probably like 40 or 50 songs that we just sent to AK. We just gave him the ball and said, "Hey, dude, write whatever you can over this. Write what you feel you're strong with and what you're comfortable with, and send them back to us. And let's try to work out the first maybe 20 and see what happens."
Okay.
And he killed it. He killed it on the chorus lines and the verses and stuff like that. That dude is singing at the top of his game right now. He's such a great singer.
Sure. So you're saying that you guys crafted up literally 50 like completed kind of musical pieces?
Yeah, it was something like that. Some of them were like maybe half written or three quarters, because I would, before I finish anything, I send it off to AK and say, "Hey, dude, is this crappy or can you work with it?" And sometimes they just go, "That's shit, Gilbert." So then I just shelve that one and start writing another one.
Right, no doubt, man. Now, Mike, talk a little bit about Ken Mary coming into the band. I mean, obviously you said he did some writing with you. I have to imagine that both in the creative and in the live setting, it's a change, because he's a very different drummer than Jason Bittner, and every bit as talented, but certainly has a different flair or a different style that's all his own.
Yeah, this guy is a monster on the drums. And when Bittner left, it's always kind of weird. You kind of feel like, when you put a baby down in the crib, his arms are kind of flailing a little bit because
right.
he's panicking. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like when a member leaves, And when Bittner left, same thing. But Steve and Ken Mary have worked together in the studio before, and Steve suggested, let's get Ken in to do this, because we had an upcoming tour. That's what we needed, was the drummer, because Bittner left. So Ken decided he wanted, he would go for it. And from the second I started doing rehearsals with the guy for that tour, I was like, man, this dude, this is going to work. I want this guy in the band, And after the tour, we asked him to join, and he was all over it. It's a great relationship. And like I said, the dude is a monster on the drums. He could play anything.
Sure.
And he's funny. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, chemistry has to be there no matter how much talent is there, right?
Oh yeah. That's definitely a prerequisite. That's got to be like that. I don't understand bands that don't get along together and they just keep playing, because for me, and I think the rest of the guys in the band, I speak for them, it's got to be fun, man. That's why we do it, is because it's fun.
Sure. No, agree totally. Music is so much different than like a real job. In a real job, you kind of are forced to deal with people that you don't necessarily want to. But in a band, when you're doing something creative, the last thing in the world you want to do is try and have artistic expression with people that you just don't like.
Yeah, it creates a lot of animosity, and I think that shows in the music too. Everything, there's traces in attitudes and stuff like that in whatever you're writing. I firmly believe that.
Nope, I agree totally. Well, Mike, looking at 2019, it seems, at least as a fan, it seems like audiences are a lot more ready to accept aggressive music again than really at any time in the past, 10, 15 years. Are you seeing that, and why do you think that might be?
Yeah, I am seeing that. There's definitely a big resurgence in like the aggressive metal. It seems to be really getting popular right now. With mainstream radio, you hear a lot of like the heavy bands, like kind of not necessarily periphery, but that kind of stuff going on where it's really produced. It sounds great. And, it's a great band, but I think that style, is come to a head. I think people are just now starting to look for something a little bit different. They're going back to the angry stuff. And I believe that music cycles around, it keeps doing it. People change throughout the years, and they always revisit it though. So it's like a constant circle, it just keeps going around and around, and you keep revisiting what, you were brought up with, and then you change it up, and you go back and change it up. So that,
Sure.
you know, that's at least how it works with me, and I'm super grateful that right now the aggressive metal seems to be making a resurgence again.
Sure. Do you think, and you know, I'm just winging it here with this one, but do you think that there'll ever be a time when we'll see a younger generation having the same type of success that the, you know, like your generation had? And I'll point to in that generation, there were so many cliques, whether it was the Bay Area thrash scene or the Big Four or the, you know, the New York scene with the, you know, with the bands out there. There were these cliques of bands, and they all seemed to work well together to try and bring everybody along with them. There's great bands that are coming up now, your Warbringers or Havoc or what have you, but it doesn't seem like they click together to pull each other along. It seems like they're all very out on their own or very splintered these days.
Yeah, I definitely see that, but I also see I see them trying to do it though. I think when we were all coming to back in the late '80s and mid '80s and stuff like that, the high top tennis shoes and denim jackets, and it was, even though we all had all these different cliques all over the place, it was all really one big clique, you know. And I think that's what you're saying, right? We all understood, even though it was a little different with us all. I think it's a great model for what they're trying to do now, and I see that that's trying to come back. But I think it will too. You know, I think it's just starting to happen again, like it's starting to cycle again. It makes me really happy.
Sure, no doubt, man. Well, Mike, you guys are obviously getting ready to head off to Europe. In fact, don't you leave? You leave like tomorrow or Monday or something, don't you?
Yeah, we leave on Monday.
Okay, and how long are you going to be in Europe, and then what follows?
We are going to be in Europe for about 3 weeks, and we're touring with Overkill and Destruction, so we get to hang out with Bittner again. That
Nice.
should be pretty chaotic and fun.
Right.
And then we come back to the States, and we take about a month off, and then we do a United States run. So, and then after that, we're back to Europe doing the festivals again. So we're going to have a pretty busy year, and hopefully we'll have, follow-up runs to the U.S. tour. I'm sure we will, but that's in the talks right now. We're trying to schedule that.
Sure. Now doing those European festivals, Michael, clearly the Europeans are super, super loyal and supportive for this kind of music. Why do you think it is that they are so much more, I don't know, I'll say diehard, although I know that's probably not the right word, but why do you think they are so much more diehard than the U.S. audiences to, you know, their metal, you know, versus here where it's so much more trendy?
Yeah, you know, that's a hard question to answer. I don't know, but it is really like, you go over there and it's kind of like a time warp from 1988. You know, they're still dressed like that, and they are total diehard fans for sure. And they're very, how would you say it? They're very possessive of their metal. You know, that's like it's a lifestyle for them over there. We're maybe not so much a lifestyle here for a lot of fans. I mean, they're definitely still here, the lifestyle fans, but it's not as much in the culture here as it is over there.
Right.
I mean, that's probably the best explanation I could give on that. It's very cool going over there and seeing it. It's fun. So
sure. Does it give smaller, like newer bands, and I'll point to a band like Night Demon, who I'm sure you've probably heard of. You know, they've played those festivals over there, and they get exposed, and they're a much bigger band in Europe than they are here in the States. And I almost wonder if it's because they play even if it's at 3:00 in the afternoon at Wacken, they're still in front of 50,000 people that are, you know, locked into that music. Where here, if they play 300 seater, you know, here they're happy. You know, it just doesn't make it doesn't make sense to me that there's not that kind of interest here when there's so many more people here.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange phenomena, about that. Mm-hmm. And like our whole festival circuit over here has kind of gone away too, you know, when they had like the Rockstar Energy Drink Tour and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
whatever happened to all that?
I don't know.
But you go over to Europe, and that's thriving over there, and they all take off of work to go on festival season. That's their vacation, is traveling with the festivals and going to these shows. And Wacken is a major, major experience. That's like the Super Bowl of metal right there.
Sure.
We did it last year. It was awesome.
Excellent. Very cool, man. Are you doing it this year or not on it this year?
We're not doing it this year. Hopefully next year we'll be back on it. But,
very cool. Very cool,
yeah.
man. Well, dude, for now, people are just going to have to buy the new record. It's called The End of Chaos. Everybody should check it out. If you like thrash metal, if you like Flotsam and Jetsam, either one of those, you're going to be satisfied with this release. So, Mike, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the record and maybe tell us a quick story about it. So what would you like us to wrap this one up with?
You know what? How about Control? That's fast, it's aggressive, and it's probably... I'm not going to say probably. I'm going to say hands down the most difficult Flotsam song for me to play, because if I miss one note in it, it derails me. So I got to be on my game for that. That's about the only story for it. It's a stressor for me to play, but I love it. It's super angry.
Very cool. Well, let's get super angry right now. It is Flotsam and Jetsam right here on your Classic Metal Show.